Welcome to the SmartTechCheck podcast, hosted by Mark Vina, your home for candid, insightful, and provocative conversations about the smart home automation, security, smartphones, PC and console gaming, and much more.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Vina, host of the SmartTechCheck podcast. Today is Wednesday, November 9th, 2022. The modern workplace, as we know it, has dramatically evolved over the past 3 years, in major part due to COVID-19, but also in connection with the huge productivity potential that technology has unleashed for working from home in a dynamic and exciting manner. Wrapping data around these changes is always quite helpful, so I'm pleased to have Sam Kennedy, Senior Director of Product Marketing at Crestron, to join us for an insights-based podcast to discuss a recent study that the company has pulled together. Sam, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Mark. Happy to be here.
I am so glad that you're here. Let's talk a little bit about, first of all, before we go into your background, which I do want to go into in a second, there's 4 people on the planet that don't know who Crestron is. Let's talk about who Crestron is. I grew up around Crestron. I know many of the senior execs at Crestron. And it really, as I've told many of the execs there, Crestron was all about the smart home before there was a smart home. But
absolutely,
in just 30 seconds, give people a quick update on who Crestron is.
Sure. Crestron is a 50-year-old family-owned company. We are leaders in really 3 key areas. That's high-end home automation, where we started from 50 years ago, and continue to do so today. We are a leader in audio-video communications, and unified communications. So those are really the 3 key components that make up Crestron.
Right. And it's amazing where Crestron's technology is. I mean, they're in sports venues. People, of course, connect with them when they see them at their corporate office, which you obviously have a very strong presence there. But it always amazes me when I hear, hey, our technology, this may not be public information, but our technology is at a particular airport or some type of venue.
Stadiums,
yeah.
Schools, retail shops.
Yes.
Anywhere where you need high quality audio, video around a building, a campus, from a unified communications perspective, when I want to connect over Teams or Zoom. So yeah, we are the backbone for audio, video, and communications for all sorts of different use cases. Like you said, not everybody sees us. We're not always the thing that you touch. A lot of times we're the device behind the monitor. We're that control system that allows you to control a house, to turn the lights off, the shades, control audio in a house, so in ships. So we're really everywhere.
Yeah, and before we go into your background, which I definitely want to get into, what's interesting to me about Crestron is that their technology has to play a role in those type of public venues. They really have to be FailSafe technology. When you're implementing your technology at a stadium with 100,000 people, you can't have the technology, whatever it is, because you have different capabilities.
Quality, reliability, security. These are all things that are just in our DNA. Scalability. These are things that just drive us. I think we lead the industry because, like you said, things can't fail. We're put into government applications where there's wars going on. We are put into, again, we're in maritime, so we may be on a ship in the middle of the ocean. There's no room for failure in those types of applications. We have applications where we worked with NASA and we helped do mission control with the Mars rover. So we are very high quality and very highly reliable, which is just as it relates to a conference room is the same thing. If you have a lot of high valuable individuals on a video call, can't fail. Right, those things has to always work, and I think we really pride ourselves here at Crestron that our products always.
Your technology is bulletproof. The market has spoken, and I think it recognizes that fact. Let's go into your background just for a minute or two. I think that's always worthwhile to kind of dive into, what someone brings to the table from an experience standpoint. So let's talk a little bit about you for about a minute.
Sure, I've been here at Crestron now for just about a year. Actually, I think it'll be next week. I'll be 1 year. Again, I did graduate from Central Connecticut with a degree in sociology. I've been in the unified communication space for 25 years. I think my first few years, I was always embarrassed about sociology, but it really made a lot of sense as to the career that I've chosen. But I've been about 25 years in the industry. The last 17 were at Polycom and at Poly, and I had a variety of roles throughout, even previous to that. A lot of time in sales, a lot of time in product development, and now I'm part of marketing. So really understand what it takes, especially in the unified communications environment, around what it takes talking to customers, what our customer needs, how to go build products. And I'm also a storyteller, so the marketing piece fits pretty good. And I'm very customer centric, very end user centric. And I've been having a ball here at Crestron. It is a fun company with lots of great products, high quality, like we talked about. And so I've been having a blast.
Well, let's go into this one project you've been kind of overseeing for Crestron, and that's this study that you're calling tackling the modern workplace by the numbers. And as I said at the top, what's interesting to me about this topic is people kind of sort of know that the workplace has changed because it affects their own individual lives. But I like the fact that you've got a study that really wraps data around this, and of course the way you extract insights. So let's talk a little bit about the study itself and the analytics behind it.
Sure. So as I'm sure most people that are watching this are aware, right, the world has changed rapidly over and dramatically over the last, say, 2.5 years through COVID. And so what we wanted to do is put some research around what was happening out there and how has the world changed, what has it evolved to, and it really put some true analytics around this. So we actually did 2 studies simultaneously. One was targeted at the actual employees, the end users themselves. How are they interacting with unified communications? What are the challenges? What are the things that are working? What's not working? How are they working? So we had one survey that was really targeted at the employees and the end users themselves. The other survey was done around the IT decision makers, so the ones that are enabling those rooms, the challenges that they're facing, what are their strategies. And so again, it was 2 studies simultaneously, but they fit together, right? So it's looking at 2 sides of the same problem. That's why we wanted to do them joined like this.
Right. No, I think that's study and extracts data from 2 different distinct groups, and you obviously are going after mid-level employees and IT decision makers. The foundation of the data is, I think, excellent. And in addition to that, it's very recent, August of 2022. This is not. There's been a lot of studies done, but it was in the middle of COVID, the tail end of COVID, and this is very, very recent. So I like that aspect as well. So we're going to talk about the key 4 findings, and that's what I really like about this report as well, because I've gone through it, multiple times. It's not a report. You say a lot of these studies where your eyes cut to skim back because you're not really sure what the study is observing, from a takeaway standpoint. But at a macro level, because we're going to go into each of these individually, let's talk about the key findings real quick.
Sure. So, and like you said, we try to make the study, the actual report itself, pretty engaging. As it's not there's lots of pictures and I think lots of good key bullet points to pull away from. So I think it's really nice, easy read. But there's really 4 key findings for us as we looked at the report. Number 1 is that the hybrid the world has changed significantly, even over the last few months, right? That's why I think your point around the survey being recent is key. Is obviously the world changed through COVID and we all went home. Everybody was working as a single person at their desk, typically at home. And everyone was in that same scenario. Well, now as people are starting to go back to the office, you're having this shift of having some people at home, some people in the office. And so there's lots of complexities that is driving. Number 2, organizations need to look at how to enable their rooms for this hybrid work. And that as people are getting back to their conference rooms, what we're finding is that most conference rooms within an organization, call it a classroom, a courtroom, or inside of an enterprise, the rooms are not enabled for the challenges that the users are facing. Number 3, not only is collaboration not ubiquitous, but you want to look at having the right technologies for the right applications. And so you have to look at every meeting as a high value meeting space. And number 4, we're starting to see that some stability in what's going to be happening moving forward, right? It's where I spent a lot of time with the industry analysts. They're calling it like work from home 2.0. And so really we're starting to see some trends that are solidifying. I think the last 8 to 18, 24 months have been things have been happening really one way. There was a lot of challenges maybe the last 6 months, 9 months, but now we're starting to see some trends there that allowing some stability so people can start to make some real decisions.
Well, and that's I want to drill into each one of these points in a little bit of depth. I think that last point you made is really important because companies, like the stock market, they like continuity. They like even if they don't like the news, they like stability. They like the fact that things are not going to change that dramatically, so they can plan around it. And many of the companies that you do work with obviously spend quite a bit of money on technology every year, and having an idea of where the puck is headed, so to speak, and if it's headed in a very stable position, I think that lends to more deliberate and more efficient decisions. Let us go into the first finding a little bit in a deeper way. I've got a couple of slides on each topic, but let's talk about that first key finding.
So, like I was saying, that during COVID, everybody was at home. They were the single head from their home office or from their kitchen or their bedroom or wherever they were able to do video from. And so we were all on this equal playing field as I was dialed into a meeting. And the challenge is now as certain people are starting to go into the conference rooms in the actual office or in a classroom, there's driving this inequity for the users, that some people are having some experience because they're at home, they're that single head, and then others are in a conference room. You might see 4, 5, 6, 10, 15, 20 people in a room, and it's driving this inequity for the users. And so that is driving this complexity with this inequity, right? The technologies aren't equal, the people's faces, their heads. I mean, all of us that are at home, we're going to be equal size. When I call into a conference room, everybody might be little itty bitty, and I can't really see who's talking, and I don't get the context. And so it's driving these new complexities that we really hadn't seen pre-COVID.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what's interesting about that is that, and we've all gone through it. I mean, during this 2-year process or 3-year, let's call it, it's been 3 years now. If you go back to the beginning of the pandemic, I mean, you've had people that were hired during COVID and up until coming back to the office, and many companies are still kind of doing it in a very deliberate manner. They've never met the people that hired them in person, or their manager for that matter. So I think this is an excellent point. So let's talk about that. That I want to drill into that 41% because that's a pretty significant number.
Yeah. So as I said, I've been doing unified communications for about 25 years now, and even though I've spent most of my life doing this, the adoption rate of collaboration technologies is still relatively low. Depending on which analyst you talk to, they would say about 10% of conference rooms in the world are video enabled. So it's a relatively low number, and so what the challenge is, as you said, people are starting to go back to the office, and there's this inequity of people that are in the office and people that are at home. They still need to be able to communicate with everybody there, and so there is this real drive to put as much technology into these rooms as possible. We're expecting just from one of the analysts we talked to a couple of weeks ago, they said a 3x times. So the industry says we're about 10% penetration rate. Like I said, they're looking at about 27% penetration rate within the next 3 or to 5 years, something like that. But it is very dramatic growth. Right. And that's just because they're trying to drive this equity. Organizations are, how do I enable my users to have this business continuity, to have the best experience, to be able to drive equitable, to keep my business running in a way that I couldn't before, just wouldn't even come up in pre-COVID, right? Just inherently, people are going to be remote, and I need to enable as many spaces as possible. And I think that's what we're seeing with this statistic.
Well, and I'll make a shameless pitch for Crestron. I mean, you've responded to that in such a manner that since many offices, to your point, have not been equipped with the full Monty, so to speak, in terms of video conferencing equipment and the expense that goes into that, you folks each have modular solutions that are on carts. They can go from conference room to conference room to conference room in a very seamless kind of plug and play manner that I think is terrific, because a lot of companies don't want to equip every single conference room with video conferencing equipment. So I really think that is a terrific.
Yeah, one other point I would make there is that it's not just Crestron alone in many cases, that it's our partnerships with Microsoft Teams, it's our partnerships with Zoom and others, with Cisco. So Crestron is very good at making high quality hardware devices. And so it's our alignment with those cloud platform players that really are enabling this in a new way, right? It's that same user interface that I have in my desktop, now I have in the conference room, and that's really driving huge adoption, right? What COVID showed us is that people can make video calls on their own. They're not afraid. Pre-COVID, everyone's like, I'm not touching that thing. It's too complicated. Even though it wasn't, there was this perception. But what COVID showed us is that anybody can join a video call. It's my Teams client, it's my Zoom client, it's whatever client is out there. Well, the interfaces in these rooms look very similar, if not identical, to the cloud platforms that they're using on their laptop,
Right.
on Mac. And so driving that consistency of experience is enabling this scale that's just unprecedented before. So it's really a combination of manufacturers like Crestron and our alignment with the cloud platform players like Microsoft, Zoom, and others.
Yeah, I think that's important, and I think it's a good one. In that is that Crestron's always taken kind of a egalitarian, embrace third-party solutions type of way, because why reinvent the wheel? I mean, there's a lot of great solutions out there, and Crestron is the perfect agent that brings all that capability together, regardless of what client or whatever service that client might be using. Let's hit the next point here. There we go. And let's talk about key finding number 2.
Yeah, so as organizations are starting to roll out these technologies in lots of conference rooms, you have to think about what is that meeting equity going to be like, and how do you enable, you have to assume that every meeting is going to have somebody remote. Now, not every meeting is going to have somebody remote. Of course not, right? There's going to be people are going to go into the conference room, they're going to have a team meeting, and they're going to need technologies that are going to enable them to be able to collaborate with everyone that's local in the room. And there's going to be some meetings that everybody is remote. But what we're finding with these key studies is that the majority of meetings are going to have some hybrid concept. So you're going to have people in varying locations, some that are working from home, some that are in the office. And so you have to, as you're rolling out these technologies, you have to assume that that's what it's going to be, is that there's going to be a large portion of the meetings that your users are in are going to be hybrid.
Well, and we'll hit the next point here. Case in point, I'm on calls every single day. I mean, I'm on 8-10 calls a day. I'm in the Bay Area, which is why we have the Golden Gate Bridge behind me, hint, hint, hint. But the thing I've observed, even over the last 5-6 months, every time I've had a call, there has always been people, even if it was in an office, there was one or two people calling in from some other place. So again, I think to your point, the hybrid phenomenon is here with us to say, but let's tackle this slide as well.
Yeah, and again, what we're starting to see is, and I say starting because I think there's all over the place, is people starting to get back to the office, where I think, like you said, everybody's been remote for the last so many years now, but we're starting to see some uptick in people getting back to the office. Organizations are trying to entice their employees to get back to the office because there are some things. Again, I've dedicated my whole life to 25 years, and almost my whole life, to video, what we're doing right now, video enabling and collaborating remotely. But you still need times when you're all in the same room. And so the organizations are trying to drive employees back into the office. Some people want to go back to the office. They may not have a four-walled office. There's value of going to the office. They want that. And so what we're seeing is just, not only with this study, I spend a lot of time, like I said, with customers. I've been meeting with a whole bunch of customers this week here. And that the reality is that there's a lot of the there's going to be remote participants. You have to accept that that's going to be the case, and you need, as an organization, to enable your spaces to embrace that.
Well, I mean, 84% is a big number.
Big number.
Yeah. I've done a lot of studies in my illustrious career, and I don't remember getting an 84% answer on anything. So that's a pretty.
That's virtually everyone.
Yeah, it's a pretty stunning number. Let's talk about the third finding, because this concept of high value meetings is really interesting because, to your point, before COVID, I'm a creature of corporate America. I would have a lot of meetings where you'd walk out of a meeting saying, I wish I could get that hour back, because the close proximity you were to other people lent itself to this. Well, let's have a meeting to have a meeting. And if the meeting is not productive, we'll schedule another meeting. So I guess your point is that what's happened is now these meetings are happening online, these hybrid meetings. By nature, they're becoming very high value oriented. So there's very, very, very few wasted meetings.
Yeah. And I think early on in the pandemic, it was very much survival mode. Get a webcam, get some type of microphone and speaker, get whatever you can just to keep business continuity going on. As we're now going back to whatever that new normal thing is you want the right technologies for the right applications. And so, when we're talking to customers, you don't want to just put a small webcam into a large conference room and think that that's acceptable. So yes, you have to look at the spaces, the rooms that you're going into, and have the right technology to enable those spaces, because you have to look at every meeting as high value, because you have your employees are expensive, your students are spending a lot of money, the users themselves are demanding a higher quality level of experience. And you can see the statistics here, right? 44% saying in-person collaboration helps them feel engaged with company culture. So that's just one of the stats. I think there's a whole number of them that you'll find in the study of the users saying, arm me with the right technology. That's going to help bring me back to the office. That's going to enable me to be more productive. And I spend a lot of time with the largest enterprises in the world. That's just where I've come from. And I live outside of New York, so I spend a lot of time with the big banks, as you can imagine, and media and entertainment, things like that. And those organizations that had embraced enabling the right technology in the right rooms, they survived. They were the most successful once COVID happened. Their business basically didn't miss a beat, right? It was everyone went home for it, and then at a drop of a hat, and everything just kept going on, right? They were, the business continuity for them was very successful. And so what we're gathering from the data points in the study, and in general talking to customers, you want the right technologies for the right spaces. That's going to drive your success. It's why we're doing very well in the AV world and the UC world, because we have solutions for every size room. You don't want to put a small room in a large room, and you don't want to put a small room solution in a large room. Your users aren't going to have a great experience. They may get some audio clipping, they may get some video clipping, they may not see the participant with camera tracking, they may look very small, so I don't really feel engaged there. And so Crestron we're very well positioned to have solutions for all size rooms. And the study and the data points that we were getting really just showed that Crestron has the right solutions for all these different
and on that last point, what I think is interesting is that since you have such a close relationship with dealers and your channel partners, they have expertise in this area. So they can come into a corporation or to a let's call it a small medium business and get that level of expertise, because you just can't go down to Best Buy, buy a bunch of cameras and equip a couple of conference rooms. There's an art to it. And obviously the dealers and channel partners that you work with and have been doing this for years, they have that level of know-how. Now, here's an interesting point, Sam, that the finding that the study came up with, and that is this whole notion of workplace stability. We were kind of joking about it at the beginning of the podcast, but workplace stability is a big thing, both from an employee standpoint, a participant standpoint, and also from a company standpoint, because it allows you to make more deliberate decisions about investments and things like that. But let's talk about that.
Yeah, as we're getting back to some people are starting to go back to the office, we are seeing some stability in the strategies of what's happening. Right, there is more people are starting to come back on a more regular basis. They may be coming back for Taco Tuesday, or organizations are leveraging approaches to get their people back to the office. And so we are starting to see some collating of strategy or of applications around people getting back. And so what we're starting to see is strategies from the organizations around, now how do I enable all of these rooms? How do I enable all of these spaces? And again, I think you can see here, there's still some shifting around how people are, what's happening, but you can see 54% of the respondents saying that they're spending about the same amount of time in the office. So we're starting to see some strategies start to take place here. Now, all organizations are going to be different. Some, even inside of organizations, are going to have different groups. Like I know at Crestron, we HR comes in. We make anyone who's relatively local to the office, they're coming in on Wednesdays, right? And so they have a strategy within their part of Crestron to be able to get people together. And so we're starting to see these strategies start to happen, and we're starting to see some stability. So as these things are happening within inside of an organization, the IT staff who has to outfit these spaces, they can now start to work with the different HR leaders or different sales leaders, different parts of the organization, and start to strategize and put in technologies that align to what's happened inside of these organizations. And so we're starting to see some trends, we're starting to see some stability, and I think we're coming out of that survival mode that was very early on in the pandemic of just get any technology out there, that organizations are saying, okay, we got through that survival mode, now let's get the right technology for the right applications to align to what's these trends that are starting to happen inside of the organization. And so you can really start to put a strategy together with the organization. Now, I will admit, while we're seeing some stability, you still want to have some flexibility built into this, because we just don't really know what's going to happen tomorrow, right? Like all of a sudden something could change and everyone's going to have to work from home again for a period of time. So you want to have as much flexibility in your strategy as you can. But we are starting to see some stability in around this, so that organizations can have a real strategy versus just throw things at the wall and see what sticks.
Well, this is really a fascinating study. Let me just hit the last slide here, because it's just a quick summary of the four. You may just want to spend a minute just summing up the four key takeaways, and then we'll just spend a minute telling people how they can download it, because of course the study is a lot longer than the slides that we've just shown.
Yeah. So again, I think the big takeaways are that hybrid meetings are absolutely here to stay, and you have to enable your organization to align with this new hybrid workflow, hybrid 2.0, where a large, almost every meeting, as we saw in the statistics, are going to have somebody remote. So you need to enable that. You also need to have the right technologies for the right rooms, because you don't want to have you want to have engaging and equitable meetings for your employees, or they want those types of meetings. So you need to look at and enable as many rooms as you can within an organization that align with this this hybrid work that's going to continue for the foreseeable future, maybe probably forever at this point. So you want to have the right technologies, and you want to enable as many people to work from wherever they are as much as possible.
And last but not least, let's make sure we give people kind of some information on how to download the report. Here's the hyperlink that you can access and download the report for free. Let me emphasize, for free. Free is a good deal. And Sam, I do appreciate your time. Crestron's doing some really wonderful work in this area, and it's really important work. Because the keep people use that phrase, the new normal, the new normal. But the fact of the matter is that adapting to what's happened over the last 3 years is critical. Managing the investment spend that many of the clients that you do work with is critical, and wrapping some data and study information around this, I think, is very important. So really, thanks for your time for joining me for today's podcast.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you very much. Like you said, download the study. If anyone has any questions, you can ping me on LinkedIn or go to your Crestron account manager, any of our great channels and distributors. So we're really anxious to help organizations get through this hybrid work and figuring this all out. We have a lot of experience here. Happy to help everyone. So appreciate the time and thanks for inviting me today.
No problem, Sam. So for our viewing and listening audience, please, I want to thank you for making the Smart Tech Check podcast part of your day or commute. And please make sure that you hit the like and subscribe buttons at the end of today's podcast. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at MarkVinaTechGuy. And until next time, have a great week. And thanks again, Sam.
Thank you.